Candymonium at Hersheypark is a B&M hypercoaster that opened on July 3rd of 2020, and this is one of the best B&M hypercoasters I have currently ridden, standing at a height of 210 feet and reaching a maximum speed of 76 miles per hour. This roller coaster is located in the Chocolate Town section of Hersheypark and draws in the majority of the crowds throughout the day, considering that it is right at the front gate of the park. And this is a smooth roller coaster, and I mean a really smooth hypercoaster, guys, and it's definitely one of the best ones. So in today's video, I'm going to be doing a full in-depth review of Candymonium, going through a couple of categories, determining the final score of this phenomenal B&M hypercoaster. Height is considered to be one of the key factors to determine if a roller coaster is intense. In this case, Candymonium is a hypercoaster, meaning it stands between 200 and 300 feet. But the exact height for Candymonium is 210 feet. And that is a pretty good height. With that kind of height, you're going to have a very long, drawn-out drop that will give some good, sustained airtime. And for a height like this is one of the tallest roller coasters in Pennsylvania right now. And again, 200 to 300 feet is a height that will intimidate the general public. While for coaster enthusiasts may not be insanely tall, it is definitely an exceptional height. So I'm going to be giving an 8 for this category. Speed is also another key factor in roller coasters. In this case, Candymonium reaches a speed of 76 miles per hour, which is a pretty average speed for a hypercoaster manufactured by B&M. And while most B&M hypercoasters have a mid-course brake run that slows the train down in the middle of its ride course, Candymonium does not. It has a couple of trim brakes, but for the most part, this coaster does not lose its speed throughout the full duration of the coaster, and that is something I really admire about this roller coaster. So for speed, I am going to be giving another 8. Next, we're going to be talking about this roller coaster's drop. And while Candymonium doesn't offer as intense of a drop as its neighboring coaster, Skyrush, which is another hypercoaster, this drop is pretty graceful. It's 77.3 degrees. So if you're in the back row, you're going to get some good floater airtime that's pretty sustained, especially if you leave your restraint up a little bit. But this drop is definitely not intense. It's really just graceful. There's no real whip on this drop unless you're way in the back where you will get some floater airtime. But that's not a bad thing, guys. Like, just because this drop isn't like the most intense thing ever, like the drop from an RMC hybrid coaster, this drop is still pretty great. It's not meant to offer a crazy intense experience, but I'm still going to be giving this drop an 8.5 because this is a B&M we're talking about. This isn't going to be some crazy ejector airtime filled drop like Skyrush, which is neighboring this coaster. So yeah, 8.5 for Candymonium's drop. Now airtime is our next category, and Candymonium has 7 airtime points throughout the coaster. You get airtime from the first drop, airtime from this first hill, then you get some airtime from the second hill, and again, you all 3 of these airtime moments are strong floater airtime, so it's not going to be really light airtime. These moments are pretty sustained and are pretty strong for floater airtime, especially the second hill. But then, after those 2 first hills and after the drop, there is a speed hill that you get some pretty strong floater airtime on that I'd actually argue if it were ejector instead of floater, but I can still consider it to be strong floater airtime, basically flojector airtime. And then going up into that helix, there's an off-axis hill that gives some airtime, followed by another airtime hill that gives airtime, and then you get some small light airtime going into the brake run. And And I'd say this is some very frequent airtime we're seeing here. B&M is known for the floater airtime frequently, hill after hill, except you get some airtime out of some spots that you wouldn't expect on this roller coaster. And it has some pretty unique spots as well. But for most of the part, they are the traditional B&M floater airtime that you get from those very tall hills. So I am going to be giving a 9 for the airtime category. Now it's time to discuss the overall layout of Candymonium. So Candymonium starts out right out of the station, you go straight into the lift hill, and this is a pretty fast lift hill. You go up to the top really quickly, which is not common for the older B&M hypercoasters, but this is a very quick lift hill. It's only about 20 seconds until you get up to the top, so pretty quick, maybe even 15 to 20 seconds, I would guess. I haven't timed it for the lift hill duration. But then you crest the peak, 210 feet. Then you dive down the 77.3 degree drop. And you're basically going through the forest right over this river. You go into the first airtime hill, you get some good floater. And you're basically going over this river. And then you go right over into the hammerhead turn, followed by another airtime hill. This time you get stronger airtime. Next, you'll travel over the speed hill that delivers some strong floater airtime, followed by an upwards helix. That is pretty forceful, to be honest. And then you're going to do an off-axis dive down that gives some airtime if you're in the back, followed by another airtime hill that gives very light floater. You're still going to be getting airtime. And then you're going to wind around the chocolate fountain, and then one small little dip into the brakes. And I find this layout to be pretty good. It is still pretty average for a B&M hypercoaster, but there are some unique parts, like the interaction with the guest pathways. I really like that at the end of the coaster with the fountain. And this coaster offers some pretty great airtime moments throughout the layout, as well as some cool forces. And it's a very smooth layout also. Very smooth. So I'm going to be giving an 8 for overall layout. Also, speaking of smoothness, that is going to be our next category. And this coaster opened in 2020, so it's only about 2 years old as of right now. In fact, in a couple of weeks, it's going to be Candymonium's birthday, which is July 3rd. So that's going to be pretty cool. And this coaster has never gotten any rougher since it opened in 2020. This is buttery smooth, absolutely no roughness throughout the entire layout. This thing is super smooth, super tolerable, so I am going to be giving a 10 for smoothness. Now we're going to be talking about the restraints, one of the key factors to enjoyment on any roller coaster. And guys, this gets a thumbs up. The restraints on Candymonium are fabulous. It has the B&M clamshell lap bar, which is super, super comfortable. And on top of that, the seats are really comfortable. The trains are really open, which is what I really like about B&M hypercoasters and B&M giga coasters, is that they have these really open trains with very comfortable seats and very comfortable lap bars. And these lap bars allow for tons of room to get airtime. So even if you're going to get stapled, it's not going to be uncomfortable or painful. And these are one of my favorite restraint systems and restraints overall. So I'm going to be giving a 10 for restraints. Now we're going to be talking about operations on Candymonium. And for starters, let me just state the facts. Candymonium operates 3 trains at a time, and each train situates 28 riders, and with those 3 trains, it has pretty good capacity. But unfortunately, during my visit at Hersheypark, Candymonium was not having the best of operations, unfortunately. And it wasn't the ride operators themselves, it was really the guests that were taking a pretty long time with all their belongings. And a lot of people who were too big to ride Candymonium weren't able to ride, and they were kind of holding up the whole operation system. Like you can probably see over there, this person trying to get into their seat, and they just don't know that they're too big for the restraint system. And the operators, who shouldn't even be trying to get him in, they should just be turning him away. They were, so it's partly on the right operator themselves, but overall, these operations just weren't really that great. Even when there wasn't a problem with anyone's restraint, the general public were just taking a very long time to situate their loose articles on the other side, and it didn't work out too well, and we were seeing 2 to 3 minute operations and dispatches, and that's just not that great. I mean, it's a good thing that each train has 28 riders with a total of 3 trains, so that does help with it, but we want to see 1 minute operations, at least 1 minute, because the line wasn't really moving too fast, which is not good. So I am going to be giving a 7 for operations. Alright, now time for our final category, which is theming. And Candymonium has some pretty good theming, I guess. This coaster's themed to candy, if you couldn't tell already. Specifically Twizzlers, Hershey Kisses, Reese's, that kind of stuff. You can see labels of those different candy brands throughout the full area and line of Candymonium. You can also see like Jolly Rancher and some other candy brands, and I find this theme a little bit interesting. There's not really too much elaborate theming other than you just seeing the candy brand labels, and the river that the whole coaster sits on top of, not like a river, but these like small streams that the coaster goes over. An employee said that those are supposed to be chocolate rivers, so I can see that because they're pretty brown, and the coaster is brown and white, so that sort of symbolizes a Hershey Kiss, if you couldn't tell. And there's not really too much actual theming going on here in the queue line other than just seeing the candy labels and some cool LED lights. So it's pretty generic, pretty basic. I do like the full atmosphere of the whole area around Candymonium. And you can't forget about that Hershey's chocolate fountain. And yeah, so nothing really too crazy. Each of the trains is themed to something else. So there's the Twizzlers train, the Kisses train, and the Reese's train. So I'm going to be giving a generic 6 for theming. So our final score comes out to be an 8.5. This is a very great hypercoaster, offering some great floater airtime and a very compact layout. It has great trains and has a very good interaction with the Chocolate Town area and a very great atmosphere overall in the whole area of Chocolate Town around Candymonium. The actual layout of Candymonium offers 7 different high-quality airtime moments and some great guest pathway interaction. So that is our final score for this great B&M hypercoaster. So I hope you guys enjoyed today's roller coaster review. If you did, make sure to smash that like button and comment down below in the comment section what other videos you'd like me to do, what other reviews. And if you're enjoying my content, make sure to subscribe to Coaster Brothers with the notifications on. And as always, guys, stay on the thrill side of life.